Oil pan.
Oil pan.
Oil-rich.
Oil-rich.
The oil-rich Gulf states.
Oil rig.
Oil rig.
Oilseed rape.
Oilseed rape. Oilskin.
Oilskin.
Oil slick.
Oil slick.
Oil tanker.
Oil tanker.
Oil well.
Oil well.
Oily.
Oily.
He wiped his hands on an oily rag.
An oily liquid.
A shampoo for oily hair.
Oily fish.
Oink.
Oink.
Ointment.
Ointment.
OJ.
OJ.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I take the car today? Okay.
Okay, if that's what you prefer.
I'll see you at 7, okay?
Okay, let's move on to the next point.
Okay. Any questions so far?
Okay, so I made a mistake.
Look, I'm doing my best, okay?
Are you okay? Do you feel okay now? Mum's doing okay now. Will 8:30 be okay? Does my hair look okay?
Sorry I'm late. That's okay. Is it okay if I leave my bags here? Yeah, the TV's working okay.
It's okay for you to go home now. I'll pay you the rest tomorrow, if that's okay with you. How was the film? It was okay, but not brilliant.
I think I did okay in the exam.
I've met Jim once, and he seems okay.
He's an okay guy. The plans have been okayed, so let's get started as soon as possible. Did you get the okay from head office?
Okapi.
Okapi.
The OK Corral.
OK Corral.
It was more like the gunfight at the OK Corral than a football game.
Okie doke.
Okie doke. Okra.
Okra.
Old.
Old.
A pair of old shoes.
Some of the houses around here are very old.
One of our oldest traditions. The car's getting old now, and things are starting to go wrong with it.
That story's as old as the hills.
An old man.
A home for old people. I can't run around like I used to. I must be getting old.
The care of the old and sick.
I can't believe you're nearly 40 years old. A house that's 300 years old.
How old are you?
Are you older than Sally? You're old enough to get your own breakfast now. I'm not coming skating. I'm too old for that now.
A 6-week-old baby.
A 500-year-old sword.
I met up with one of my old girlfriends at the weekend. My old car was always breaking down.
That happened when we were still in the old house.
My old boss was awful.
It's good to get back into the old routine.
I enjoyed seeing all the old familiar faces. He comes out with the same old excuses every time. He comes out with the same old excuses every time.
Bob's an old friend of mine.
An old colleague.
They're old rivals.
In the old days, people used to fetch water from the pump.
We like to chat about the good old days.
It's good to see you looking more like your old self again.
Oh, just wear any old thing.
Phone any old time. I'm always here. The papers had been dumped on my desk any old how. The papers had been dumped on my desk any old how.
Good old Keith. You poor old thing.
We had a good old talk.
You old devil, you were planning this all along.
He'll never manage to persuade the old guard. I'm an old hand at this game.
A doctor of the old school.
The knights of old.
Old age. Old age.
You need to start putting money away for your old age.
My mother had a very lively mind, even in her old age.
Old age pension.
Old age pension.
Old age pensioner.
Old age pensioner.
Old Bailey. Old Bailey. Old boy.
Old boy.
An old boy's reunion. He's a nice old boy. How are you, old boy?
Oldie.
Aldi.
Ye oldie tea shop.
Old economy.
Old economy.
Is the old economy really dead?
Old economy practices.
Olden.
Olden.
People didn't travel so much in the olden days.
Old English sheepdog.
Old English sheepdog.
Old established.
Old established.
Old established merchant banks.
Old Etonian.
Old Etonian.
Oldie worldy.
Oldie worldy.
An oldie worldy pub. Old fashioned.
Old fashioned.
She wears really old-fashioned clothes.
Old-fashioned farming methods.
The idea seems rather old-fashioned now.
He's very old-fashioned when it comes to music.
Old fogey.
Old fogey.
Old folk.
Old folk.
Old folk. Old folks' home.
Old folks' home.
Old girl. Old girl.
An old girl's reunion. She's a nice old girl. Old glory.
Old glory.
Old growth.
Old growth. Old hat.
Old hat.
Most of this is probably old hat to you, isn't it?
Oldie.
Oldie.
Oldish. Oldish.
An oldish woman.
Old lag. Old lag. Old lady.
Old lady.
Where's your old lady?
Old man.
Old man.
I heard her old man beats her.
Could I have a word with you, old man?
Old maid.
Old maid.
Old master.
Old master.
A priceless collection of old masters.
Old media.
Old media.
Old money.
Old money.
He invited both the Smart Set and Perth's Old Money.
Old Nick.
Old Nick.
Old people's home.
Old People's Home.
Old salt.
Old salt.
Old school.
Old school.
He was one of the last old school comics.
Old school tie.
Old school tie.
A system based on social class and the old school tie.
Oldster. Oldster.
Old style.
Old style.
Old style communism.
Old Testament. Old Testament.
Old time.
Old time.
Old-time remedies.
Old timer.
Old timer.
Old woman.
Old woman.
Old world.
Old world.
The civilizations of the old world.
Old world.
Old world.
The town has retained much of its old world charm.
Ole.
All.
My old man.
Oleaginous.
Oleaginous. Oleander.
Oleander.
O-level.
O-level. Olfactory.
Olfactory.
The olfactory cells in the nose.
Oligarch.
Oligarch. Oligarchy.
Oligarchy.
Eventually, oligarchy took over from democracy.
Oligopoly.
Oligopoly.
Olive.
Olive.
An olive grove.
An olive sweatshirt.
Olive oil.
Olive oil.
Ollie. Ollie.
Ology. Ology.
Geology.
Climatology.
Egyptology.
The geology of North Devon is particularly interesting.
Geologically interesting.
Ologist. Ologist.
A biologist.
Olympiad.
Olympiad.
The 25th Olympiad.
Olympian.
Olympian.
He viewed the world with Olympian detachment.
Olympian mythology.
The American Olympians.
Olympic.
Olympic.
An Olympic gold medal.
Olympic Games.
Olympic Games.
The 1976 Olympic Games.
OM.
OM.
Ombre.
Ombre.
Ombudsman.
Ombudsman.
Omega.
Omega.
Omelette.
Omelette.
A cheese omelette.
Omen.
Omen.
The car won't start. Do you think it's an omen? The mist seemed like a bad omen, and Sarah's heart sank a little. He will regard your presence as an omen of good fortune. He will regard your presence as an omen of good fortune. He will regard your presence as an omen of good fortune. It's a good omen for the future.
Ometer. Ometer.
A speedometer.
OMG. OMG.
Ominous.
Ominous.
How long will she be ill? He asked. There was an ominous silence.
The car is making an ominous rattling sound.
The sky looked ominously dark.
Omission.
Omission.
The omission of her name was not a deliberate act.
His omission from the team.
Copies of the lists were posted so that omissions could be corrected.
Your failing to note her mistakes is a serious omission.
Omit.
Omit.
Please don't omit any details, no matter how trivial they may seem.
Lisa's name had been omitted from the list of honor students.
Oliver omitted to mention that he was married.
Omni.
An omnivore.
Omnibus.
Omnibus.
The Saturday omnibus edition of Brookside.
Omnibus editions of novels tend to be too heavy to be read with comfort.
An omnibus civil rights bill.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent.
Omnipresent.
Omnipresent.
The omnipresence of God.
Omniscient.
Omniscient.
The book's omniscient narrator.
Omnishambles.
Omnishambles.
Omnivore.
Omnivore.
Omnivorous.
Omnivorous.
An omnivorous reader.
On.
On.
Leave your things on the table over there.
People were sunbathing on the grass.
The little girl was sitting on her father's shoulders.
Snow falling on the mountainsides.
He threw himself on the bed. She was on her feet in no time.
He was on his hands and knees searching for something.
Can you stand on your head?
I wanted to punch him on the nose.
Matt kissed her on the cheek.
There's a diagram on page 25.
He wrote his phone number on a piece of paper.
She hung her coat on a hook. Dogs must be kept on a lead at all times.
The town is right on the border.
Is there a water supply on the island?
He grew up on a ranch in California. A store on Fifth Avenue.
You'll see the school on your left. They live on the opposite side of the town.
His eyes were on the stranger standing in the doorway. His eyes were on the stranger standing in the doorway. She trained her binoculars on the house. She trained her binoculars on the house. She trained her binoculars on the house.
They'll be here on Tuesday.
I was born on July 1st. We'll see you on Christmas Eve.
A tax on cigarettes.
His influence on young people.
There will be new restrictions on the sale of weapons.
What effect will these changes have on the tourist industry? Do you have any books on India? Do you have any books on India?
You can get information on local services by calling this number. An international conference on global warming.
He was killed on the King's orders.
I accepted the offer on the advice of my lawyer.
They live mainly on beans, lentils and rice.
Is your baby on solid food yet?
Did you manage to sleep on the plane?
Tommy should be on the 6 o'clock train. Tommy should be on the 6 o'clock train.
She got on the first bus that came along.
A statue of the king on horseback. A statue of the king on horseback.
I'll probably come on my bike.
He's on quite a good salary now. He's on quite a good salary now.
She must be on at least £50,000 a year.
The difficulties faced by families on low incomes.
Most buses run on diesel.
Does it work on mains electricity?
Are you still on antibiotics?
The doctor put her on Prozac.
A lot of these kids are on heroin by the age of 12.
He's been on the computer all afternoon.
Is Rachel still on the phone? Is Rachel still on the phone?
He played a short piece on the piano.
The album features Rick Wakeman on keyboards. The album features Rick Wakeman on keyboards. The album features Rick Wakeman on keyboards. What's on TV tonight?
Did you hear that program on the radio last night?
The movie is now available on video and DVD.
I always keep a backup copy on disc.
She's on a course all this week. She's on a course all this week.
I met him on vacation in Canada.
My girlfriend is often away on business trips.
Are you still on the management committee?
Mr. Edwards is no longer on the staff here.
Whose team are you on?
There was no steak on the menu.
What's the next item on the agenda?
Couples are presented with a bottle of wine on their arrival at the hotel. Couples are presented with a bottle of wine on their arrival at the hotel. Couples are presented with a bottle of wine on their arrival at the hotel.
All patients are examined on admission to the hospital.
What was your reaction on seeing him?
This essay is a definite improvement on your last one.
Sales are 10% up on last year.
I don't have any money on me.
The drinks are on me. Each table will get a bottle of champagne on the house.
You can contact me on this number.
Suddenly, the telephone went dead on me.
Dorothy's first husband walked out on her.
We decided to play on even though it was snowing.
He went on and on about his job all evening.
If you walk on a little, you can see the coast.
We drove on towards Manchester.
Now, 40 years on, this is one of the most successful theatres in the country.
From that moment on, I never believed a word she said. All he had on was a pair of tattered shorts.
Put your coat on. It's freezing outside.
Is the cover on properly?
Remember to put the lid back on.
He was wearing a badge with his name on.
The train stopped and 2 people got on.
Who left all the lights on?
The TV's on, but nobody seems to be watching it.
He sat down at the desk and switched on the computer.
What time is Star Trek on?
The Transport Union has confirmed that the strike is definitely on. The Transport Union has confirmed that the strike is definitely on.
I'd avoid the city centre. There's some kind of procession on. I'd avoid the city centre. There's some kind of procession on.
Is the party still on tonight, or have they cancelled it?
You're on in 2 minutes.
I'm not on again until 2 o'clock tomorrow. I'm not on again until 2 o'clock tomorrow.
I haven't got anything on tomorrow, so I could see you then.
We've got a lot on at the moment.
He's been smoking for 10 years now, on and off.
I've been on at him to fix that cupboard for weeks now. I've been on at him to fix that cupboard for weeks now. I've been on at him to fix that cupboard for weeks now.
I wish you wouldn't go on at me the whole time.
He's always going on about money. I don't know what you're on about. I'm sorry, what you're suggesting is just not on.
Right. How many of you are on for a drink after work?
I bet you £20 he won't turn up. You're on.
Once.
Once.
I've only met her once.
Paul's been to Wexford once before.
Mrs. Peterson came in to see Ruth just the once.
Staff meetings take place once a week.
They took separate holidays at least once every 2 years.
Sonia and Ida had once been close friends.
She and her husband had once owned a house like this.
It was sad to see the once great man looking so frail.
The once mighty steel industry.
I once ran 21 miles.
Marx once described religion as the opium of the people. Marx once described religion as the opium of the people. Marx once described religion as the opium of the people.
Now go upstairs at once and clean your room.
When I saw him, I recognized him at once.
I can't do 2 things at once. I can't do 2 things at once.
Don't all talk at once. Don't all talk at once.
I looked at myself in the mirror once more. I looked at myself in the mirror once more.
Once again she's refusing to help. The crowds had all gone home and the street was quiet once more.
Once again it must be stressed that the pilot was not to blame. All at once there was a loud banging on the door.
A lot of practical details needed to be attended to all at once.
I do get a little anxious once in a while. I saw her in the shop every once in a while.
I never once saw him get angry or upset.
Not once did they finish a job properly.
Be honest. For once.
Just for once, let me make my own decision.
For once, Colin was speechless. Let's settle this matter once and for all. Once and for all, will you switch off the television?
I wrote to him once or twice, but he didn't answer.
Go on, lend me the car just this once.
Once upon a time, you used to be able to leave your front door unlocked.
It only happens like this once in a blue moon.
He tried that trick once too often, and in the end, they caught him.
Once a thief, always a thief.
Once I get him a job, he'll be fine.
Once in bed, the children usually stay there.
Once over.
Once over.
Oncology.
Oncology.
Oncoming.
Oncoming.
He crashed into an oncoming car.
1.
1.
They had one daughter.
£121.
Come back at 1.
Katie is almost 1.
There are 1 or 2 things to sort out before I leave. There are 1 or 2 things to sort out before I leave.
1 or 2 of us knew him quite well.
Guests arrived in 1s and 2s.
Have you got a camera? No. You should buy one.
The train was crowded, so we decided to catch a later one.
The only jokes I tell are the ones that I hear from you.
I like all the pictures except this one.
The children seemed upset. One was crying. The children seemed upset. One was crying.
She has 2 daughters. One is a primary school teacher, the other is a musician. One of the girls I work with is getting married.
This is one of my favourite books.
I was the one who'd been attacked, not Richard.
The only ones who will benefit are the shareholders. One by one, each soldier approached the coffin and gave a final salute.
One after another, tropical storms battered the Pacific coastline. One after another, tropical storms battered the Pacific coastline. It's a TV, radio, and VCR all in one.
One can never be too careful.
Great pictures make one think.
I, for one, am proud of the team's effort.
There were several other people absent that afternoon, weren't there? Mr. Ashton, for one. There were several other people absent that afternoon, weren't there? Mr. Ashton, for one.
No one's going to put one over on me. No one's going to put one over on me. She felt as she always did in these mountains, peaceful, without care, at one with nature. She felt as she always did in these mountains, peaceful, without care, at one with nature.
He was at one with Wheatley on the need to abandon free trade. He was at one with Wheatley on the need to abandon free trade. He was at one with Wheatley on the need to abandon free trade.
How about a quick one at the pub?
Have you heard the one about the chicken who tried to cross the road?
The whole team stood up as one.
What do you attribute your long life to? Oh, that's a difficult one. Muhammad Ali and Cassius Clay are one and the same.
Tom is not one to show his emotions.
I've never been a great one for water sports. You can talk in front of Terry. He's one of us. Apologies to one and all.
You're not painting the house again, are you? Got it in one.
She's got 4 little ones.
You are a one.
One person I find very difficult is Bob.
If there's one thing I can't stand, it's people who bite their nails.
One morning I was sitting at my desk when a policeman knocked at my door.
We should go out for a drink one evening. One day she hopes to move to the south coast.
Why does my card work in one cash machine and not in another? Why does my card work in one cash machine and not in another?
It's one thing to say we have a goal. It's another to actually act on it.
He couldn't bring himself to say what he thought. For one thing, she seldom stopped to listen. For another, he doubted that he could make himself clear. He couldn't bring himself to say what he thought. For one thing, she seldom stopped to listen. For another, he doubted that he could make himself clear.
You're one lucky guy.
He was accused of stealing a horse from one Peter Wright.
Her one concern was to get to the door without being seen. Her one concern was to get to the door without being seen.
Claire is the one person I can trust.
The one and only Frank Sinatra.
I even tried my one and only French joke on them.
I don't have any ones.
One another. One another.
Liz and I have known one another for years.
They often stay at one another's houses.
One-armed bandit.
One-armed bandit.
One-dimensional.
One-dimensional.
The novel's one-dimensional characters.
One horse.
One horse.
One-liner.
One-liner.
One man.
One man.
He does a one-man show in Las Vegas.
A one-man business.